This is one thing that you read about coach. Sometimes you don't know how much validity there is to it because you're not there. You can't really make associations. But a lot of people have talked about how he has really developed Jaren Jackson Jr. over in Memphis. How he's been a part of the development of Desmond Bane, who's been one of the premier shooters in this league. So, I mean, put those two things together, do with those what you will. But those are two really big things that you want to see from Scottie Barnes, who has aspirations to be a defensive player of the year type of player, who has aspirations to be a better shooter. So if he's being successful, I think that's how they're in the playoffs. Or I just don't see a lot of growth elsewhere on this team. I think, and this is not to downplay the All NBA player he is, but I think Siakam is who he is, and he's going to bring it every night. He's going to be a guy that's going to keep you competitive. But could we see more from OG? Maybe. OG has talked about wanting to be more on ball, but that kind of comes in direct conflict with what they want to see from Scottie. So as a new coach too, I think heading into the season, that those are things to figure out because it's a clean slate for these players. Nick Nurse may have had expectations for who OG is as a player, but this is kind of an opportunity. Maybe that changes, unless that's really dependent on Masai's vision for this team. But maybe there's some players on this team that can recreate themselves, whether that's OG, Scottie continuing to get better. And this is a super long shot, but a guy who has talked a lot about wanting playing time and who has, at least showed it in spurts, like being very competitive, good shooter. Malachi Flynn, I mean, maybe he gets some playing time on this team. So there are some opportunities. I'm curious to see how it goes, but all this is going to come down to player development for Darko.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's developing Scottie Barnes into that 20-point per game two-way leader of your team. I mean, he had a pretty lackluster second year. It was disappointing for him, disappointing for the Raptors, and you're kind of thinking maybe they'll look that sort of situation. Maybe they'll kind of look to move off of a guy like a Siakam or a few of the other older guys, just to kind of just give Scottie Barnes that chance to grow into himself and find out what kind of player he wants to be. Like, what sort of impact is the amount of time the ball's in Siakam's hand having on Scottie Barnes? Does he just need that freelance to just do whatever to really grow, or can he do it alongside a guy like Siakam, or even when he was playing with Van Vliet? That he's gone now. That's going to mean more ball time for Scottie Barnes, but he's going to have to take a pretty significant jump this year. I think they'll be expecting it. Maybe they'll be surprised, that they'll act like it's a bit of a surprise, but I think behind the scenes in Toronto, they'll need to be expecting a pretty decent jump from Scottie Barnes. Like, he's the guy that they're looking to build around for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
It's the third year, especially after a lackluster second year, it's time for a jump. He's going to need to be taking a big jump in his points per game. If he sustains the passing, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. He averaged just under 5 assists last year. He could possibly take that up to possibly 6 or 7 if he's getting the ball more and he's understanding the game more. And like you said, it's going to be down to him whether or not they make the playoffs, most likely. And also, when you think about the starting team, you're kind of like, are they expecting like Grady Dick to instantly come in and be like a top 5 shooter in this league? Like, is that what they're going to need to be able to really make that sort of jump? But it's definitely an interesting one. Like you said, the player development for this team is definitely the key, and that's the main thing that I think you're right. They'll want to see from the new head coach is how he looks to develop Scottie Barnes, how he looks to bring Grady Dick into the league. Maybe he looks to get more out of OG, more out of Precious Achiuwa, guys like that. It's going to be player development's definitely the main focus. You'd have to think, bringing in a guy like Darko.
How well do we need to see Scottie play for him to quote unquote deserve? And the whole strategy behind having to keep players is definitely, that definitely comes into play. So oftentimes players are inking contracts that do they deserve? I don't know. Everyone deserves it because they're working for it. But how well does he have to play for that? Because he's coming up on a max rookie extension. And I mean, I think at a minimum, I think 30% of the cap, I think that's what, 1.7. It's a lot of money. Like he would be signed to a lot of money. And And on top of that, not just like stats wise, does it come into play at all seeing how Masai Ujiri talked to him throughout the season? And coaches have talked about it, and there's clearly smoke about his work ethic. Not to question his character, because I mean he's a young guy coming into his own in this league. But I think you see pretty early on for the superstars in this league that at a bare minimum they are known for their work ethic. They are known for how bad they want it, how hard they strive for it, and that's just not a question. So to see that come into question throughout this season as he was slumping, on top of the lack of production, makes me wonder how big of a jump, like personality-wise, he needs to make, and on the court he needs to make in a year where he's going to be potentially extended for 30% of their cap.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm like the Raptors and looking at that, that's obviously something they need to make a judgment call in terms of the actual personality, but you hope you'll see that the growth in his personality that will showcase on the floor as well. But like if he's averaging what he's averaging this year and like he's shooting below 30 from three again, only getting over 20 in 18 games like he did last year, it'll be very difficult for them to give him a max extension or anything like that. So I think there definitely is pressure on him, and there's probably a bit of pressure on the Raptors too. To like, he's in a year now where it could be kind of make or break whether they want to commit to him or not. He's gonna have to be somewhere in like the 28-6 sort of realm if he's around there for the season, and they're actually winning games on top of that, and he's shown he can be a real two-way threat and the leader of this team. Then you're like, yeah, we can believe in this guy. We can put our money into this guy and believe we're building around him. But if he continues to struggle with his efficiency, continues to struggle as a scorer, and doesn't really take that leap as the lead guy for this team, then the questions really will start to raise. And if they were to commit, then I think a lot of people will be really questioning what the Raptors are seeing.
Yeah, I think just in general, this team is unfortunately like the build of it doesn't make sense right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you love the individual success that you've seen from not only Pascal Siakam, but OG Anunoby, like a guy that everyone's on the phone trying to get. Everyone's on the phone trying to get him. Everyone's on the phone trying to get Siakam. And, Scottie was even potentially a piece that could have won them Kevin Durant, which apparently was a non-starter. But this is the interesting thing about player development, because you go from a guy like Scottie where in year one it's like it's such a blank canvas because he's such a special and a different kind of player, like with his size and his versatility and just like his style of playing too, like the Magic Johnson-esque type of passing that he has, and obviously that came in spurts and improved a little bit last season. But I think there's definitely a way for him to become a star in this league, but it's a very different type of way. Like he has to pave that. He's not just like some typical, wing shooter defender. Like you just have to get better at these two things. Like in order for him to be a great player, like he needs to become a point guard. He needs to become a 6'9" lanky point guard, stay in front of small guys, be able to still space the floor, make smart decisions like that. I think these are really tough things for a player at his age. So it's definitely understandable that it's coming there. But I think it's fascinating to watch a player like him grow, because you don't really know where it's going to go. You're not really sure like what kind of player he's going to end up becoming, because I think he's just so different of a talent.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think it's not a guy where you're thinking, like he really has that potential to be that knockdown scorer, that go-to guy in the moment. But you're also like he could still be that star. Like the Raptors picked him number 4, right? And they clearly believe that there's talent there to be a lead star, the worth building around. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how his game grows, and this should be the first insight into what type of player he's really going to be in the NBA. This is the year that we should really get the first insight there. Hopefully, if we're Raptors fans, you'll be hoping that it's all of the above. The playmaking's on point, the defense is there. He starts being that scorer, but I definitely think the defense and the passing, if that really comes to fruition this year, then that's something that you can believe in there.